Hi everyone, this is Vinyl and Paper, where I talk about stationery and paper products and vinyl records. I have my Mocha Americano here. I thought I was going to have to do French press today because I ran out of the grounds that I use for the mocha pot, but then I realized, I have beans. I can grind them whatever size I want. So now I have a fresh pot of that to keep me company. And I thought today I would talk about something, my new experience and venture into book annotating and what I learned about what I love about this kind of fiction. So then I will show you the record that I actually played last night as I was mulling over this topic. So this is a very, very well-known book. I actually read it once before in an advanced Spanish literature class in high school. Now, I may as well not have read it at all. I consider this to be really the first time I've read the book because I was either not engaged or the content was too difficult for me to read in Spanish. I didn't fully get any of what struck me so much about reading it this time in English. So one thing that happens to me with books is I could love a book to death and forget about most of it a few weeks later. And so, I don't know, something about my short-term memory and also my experience of reading books, fiction especially, is very, very immersive and emotional. And I don't really connect on an intellectual level or like a literary critic level with reading. So that might be part of it. I don't know. So what I decided to do this time is one thing I do anyway with books is I underline anything that sticks out to me that I find special or beautiful or hilarious. And so what I did this time is when I finished the book, I started going through my underlines again just to see what happened. And I ended up finding a few themes about the kind of way that Gabriel García Marquez writes phrases or sentences or describes things that they had in common. So I got out my flags and I started color coding them. By the time I got about halfway through, I realized, I'm going to use up all of my Post-it flags because I, as you can see, liked and underlined a lot in this book. I also, by the time I got here, I was like, you know what? I really am getting the gist of it, and I've gotten the value out of this exercise by here. And then after this, I read the rest of my underlines just without flagging them and started writing and pulling together my thoughts. So what I did is, as I was flagging, I started writing about it. And what the colors correspond to are the themes of his descriptions and writing that call out to me, as I said. So one is descriptions of visuals, sensations, instances. So like metaphor, simile. I really love how he describes things visually. The second one is human idiosyncrasies. The characters in this book are a bit unhinged at times and have very very idiosyncratic habits and preferences and ways that they move around this main house that a lot of the story takes place in. So that was another color. The third one was completely new visuals. So there was some imagery in here, a lot of imagery actually, that I am convinced has never existed before in someone's mind. So just the invention of beautiful scenes and combinations of objects in specific and particular places was really, really great for me. And then there was a fourth one, the pink tabs, that I just called proof rock-esque. And that's a reference to a poem that I love a lot. I'm not actually a fan of poetry, but I read this poem, The Love Song of J. Alfred Prufrock, by T.S. Eliot, when I was in high school English class, and I loved it so much that I reread it all the time. There's something about the way that T.S. Eliot puts phrases together to create completely new visuals or ways of describing feelings that really, really stuck out to me in high school when I first read this. And a couple of the things, the ways that he talks about stuff in this book really, really reminded me of it. Like, let me see if I can get an example. I think this one is really good, actually. This one's, nope, it's the, sorry. Yes, when he was alone, Jose Arcadio Buendia consoled himself with the dream of infinite rooms. Like, that's very, very proof-rock to me. So then I started working on what it is about these different ways of descriptions of visuals, human idiosyncrasies, and proof-rock-esque writing, that what is special to me about that. And then when I was thinking about the comparison to this, I then started thinking about all of the other kinds of similar writing that I have loved throughout the years that have these elements. So I first started reading this because this year I finished reading this book, 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. And this one, it was so magnificent to me. At times, like, one of the chapters was kind of hard to get through, but I persisted because of the little things I was reading throughout the book. Like, I underlined pretty similar fantastical and surreal descriptions in here and situations. And I did a lot of research after reading this because I was like, I want to read something just like this. It's the perfect, like, escape for me. And so that's how I was reminded about this book. And then, of course, I also thought about Murakami, who's probably my favorite writer. And I've read almost all of his books. This one, A Wild Sheep Chase, is one of my favorites. But again, like, I couldn't even tell you what this is about. Like, I forget about books after I'm done with them, which is why I'm doing this. But I was like, okay, these things and what I'm drawn to in them seem to be pretty related. And then I thought about this book, The 13 Clocks, which is my favorite book of all time. This is a kind of twisted fairy tale that is written by James Thurber. And I picked this out in a bookstore in a mall when I was like 7 years old. Something about it called to me. I tried reading it then and I didn't really get it, so I had to shelve it for a while. And then I picked it up a few years later and I became completely enthralled and immersed with this story and the way that he describes things. They're just completely, like, fantastical and absurd. So Murakami is referred to as magical realism. So is this, and so is this. So I was like, isn't just magical realism, like magical kind of surreal things and ways of writing that call out to me? But I realized it's not really necessarily magic as an escape. It's like there's something a little bit off or weird about all of the surreal and magical descriptions in these works. And one thing that they have in common is it's using, like, magical imagery to really highlight the strangeness of reality itself. And that's what I really love. Like, here's a line from 100 Years of Solitude. At dawn, Aureliano Segundo opened the door and saw the courtyard paved with rabbits, blue in the glow of dawn. It's like, what? And then there's another description in the book about someone gets shot, and then this trail of blood, like, starts going towards the main house in the book and, like, weaving around corners and stuff. And it's like, what the heck is going on? It's not just magical as an escape. There's something Dadaist about it, something, like, unsettling or disturbing. And the part about the human curiosities, at first I thought, oh, these characters are really quirky, but quirky to me sounds a little bit like twee or Manic Pixie Dream Girl to me. It's more about these characters being, like, a bit bizarre and disarming and mystifying. And then some of these stories are about, like, the slowness of, like, everyday life sort of slowly unraveling. So that is where my journaling took me. And this kind of relationship between the strange feeling familiar, the way that the writing is like makes me feel, and then the familiar feels strange. So that is the biggest takeaway that I have from this. Now, if I can, I guess I'll just keep looking up magical realism to find other works to tear through like I did with these. This is a page I ripped out of Time magazine about Isabel Allende. I haven't read anything by her, but it sounds like maybe I could get a similar vibe from reading her work. So if you have recommendations about anything she's written or more books that are about the familiar and the strange and highlighting the strangeness of reality to recommend, please let me know, because this is like my favorite. Something I don't usually do when I read a book or finish a book is read reviews about it. Because again, like I don't really consume movies or music or books that intellectually. It's more of an immersion. But I read some takes on Reddit about 100 Years of Solitude, and I was shocked by how polarizing it is to people. Like some people called it, one person called it a pointless fever dream, and that they were looking for a plot that doesn't exist. And I read that and I was like, did we read the same book? Like, of course, it's a fever dream for sure. And I don't know plot. I mean, I know how plot works, but I guess it's not something I'm necessarily like seeking out in a book. But I just love that there's all these crazy things happened, and there's this arc across generations and this theme of, yes, like desperate loneliness. But again, it was just an immersive, like all-consuming work for me. And hearing someone call it a pointless fever dream is like, it's almost like, well, I want to defend it, but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, it's a fever dream. And I don't know, is there a point? Does there have to be a point? So I don't know. I don't want to get into debating like whether the book is good or not, because that's so, fiction. It's so subjective. Like you can love it or hate it, and that's fine. But it was really cool to read in this one Reddit thread all of the different back and forths of people feeling like I do about it, and then people feeling like they hated it so much. Like a good friend of mine who is a very, very avid reader keeps telling me, oh my God, I hated that book whenever I post about it. And I'm just like delighted, like, oh my gosh, tell me why. So anyway, that's my short journey with thinking about this book and how it helped me tie my love for various other fiction and poetry together. So let's get this out of the way and talk about the record. I'm going to get it. I'll be right back. The record for today is Static Age by the Misfits. This is my favorite Misfits album. I heard it only for the first time in maybe 2014. A friend of mine at work recommended this one to me. He was like, this is the album. So this album, it's their first studio album, but it was recorded maybe 15 years before it was released. The story of its recording is very, very fascinating. I actually was turned on to the story a little bit by reading these blurbs by these two people. This was an art director who worked on a lot of the Misfits catalog, and David Kellis was the engineer for this record. So there was a little bit of information on here, but I dug deeper to get the full context because I was like, wait, what? So what happened was this record label called Mercury Records, they put out a record under the name Blank Records, and they didn't realize that Glenn Danzig had the trademark for a record label named Blank Records. And there was a settlement, basically, and what Glenn Danzig got in the settlement was 30 hours of free recording time. And it was during that 30 hours in New York that they recorded how many? 17 tracks for this album. Now, that is not a lot of time. And I read that half of that time was used to get the sound levels up on the board to where they wanted. And so they had to rush through the recording of all the tracks. 3 of the songs, because of those time restraints, were never even mixed, including my absolute favorite one on the album. So basically what I learned is that they couldn't find a label that wanted to put this record out, so the album was kind of shelved, and individual songs were released here and there over the years, either as small collections or as individual tracks on other albums, like this one, self-titled, and this one, Collection 2. And I actually, before reading this story, I had always been like, wow, they just really like repeating songs on albums, but I kind of get it now. So basically, that's what happened. And then this album was released as a whole album of the original songs with some updates to mixing in 1996 as part of a Misfits box set. So it's really amazing to think that this collection of songs all together just didn't really see the light of day as one unit until the mid-90s. So I love this album because I just love the order of all the songs together as one unit. And it's really amazing to think that, again, this collection of songs sounding like this weren't released all together as intended until the mid-90s. So the sound is very, very lo-fi, which is, to me, goes really well with horror punk. Okay, if you've seen any of my other videos, you know that I've talked about horror metal, I've talked about death rock, and now I'm talking about horror punk. So it's becoming clear, I didn't really realize this before, that I love horror sounds in music and imagery together with music in general. The songs on this album are based on horror films like Return of the Fly, and they're also based on news stories from the 1960s, which is a really interesting combination to me. And they're all wrapped in this package of horror punk, which is a sound that I really, really love, it turns out. So some highlights I want to call out. Last Caress, I actually first heard the Metallica cover of it on their Garage Inc. record. It's just a really fun song with NSFW lyrics, let's say. Return of the Fly it makes me laugh every time I hear it because all Glenn Danzig does in this song is sing the name of the movie and the names of the actors over and over. And I get such a kick out of that. We Are 138. I have a fun memory of this one. I went to see the Misfits a few years ago with a good friend of mine, and I went to the bathroom at one point in the venue, and I saw this perfectly like punk rock girl covered in tattoos, and she had a We Are 138 tattoo, which I thought was just the coolest deep cut. And I was so happy to see that deep cut and see her at the show and be like, you are here, you are living the life. So that was really fun memory. And then In the Doorway is my favorite song on this album. I just love the tone of his voice as he's singing. It sounds like I'm really tired. I'm not really like all there. But the notes and the chord progressions, like the melody, are just beautiful. I love this. Super, super minor key. I mean, most of this is. Theme for a Jackal has a really fun, like 60s horror movie sounding melody and like guitar part in the beginning. And then, of course, Bullet is super high energy and fun. The lyrics are kind of yikes, but I'm not really a lyrics person, so I didn't even really realize what this was about until I read them. Again, like not safe for work, not safe for this channel. But anyway, as you can see, this I mentioned this is their first studio album. Their look for this one and their aesthetic is way closer to the 76 punk vibe than when they got into more of the spooky, like ghosty Scarlet Ghost goth kind of look, goth punk. I don't know if that's the way I would want to describe it, but you know what I mean, like their iconic logo. But it's my very favorite album. Also, a week ago, I reorganized my records by category or genre instead of alphabetical, and it has been super fun. Like last night when I was picking a record to put on, I was like, I feel like metal. And I like sat in front of my metal section and was just like pulling different records out that were all together. And then I realized, no, it's not really working for me right now. Let's try punk. And then this one, I was like, yes, this is the album I'm going to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this tiny little walk through the Misfits Static Age. Really great record. The songs also are very, very short, so you could listen to the whole record in a very short amount of time. Like if you can see the song tracks, like these rings are very, very close together, so it gives you an idea of what a fun, quick listen it is. Highly recommend if you like punk, if you like kind of horror sounds, and if you like minor key, for sure. Super fun story that I didn't know prior to doing research about this. So I'm going to actually now do research about the next book like this that I want to read and finish my coffee. So hope everyone has a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.